Yay! I was looking at the wrong camera. Oh my God, I'm already off to a rough start there. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 255. Exciting episode. Exciting day.
It is an exciting episode. I was slightly distracted by the ad that was playing because it was a man. It was a man lubricating his upper inner thigh area. I guess that's a targeted ad for me.
There's a pre-roll ad playing before this live show. Kim's in the chat room, of course. Oh my gosh, yes, it is. It's replaying. That is an interesting ad to play. Maybe you're all getting that. Who knows?
YouTube knows me well.
YouTube knows all of us very well. Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 255. Tonight, we're going to get right into it because we're starting a little bit later, but that is for good reason. Our guest tonight is kind of a legend in running, not just ultra running, but road running, long distance running. Mike Wardian is taking some time out of his busy schedule to join us tonight on the show, literally driving from Boston to his home.
He's passengering.
He's
not driving. And
I said literally, he's a passenger. But he just stopped. He got his food. He got some post-marathon nutrition, and he's currently on his way home. It's nighttime on the East Coast, but we get to sit down and talk to him about what he's been up to. Some serious stuff over the last few months. 10 marathons in 10 days, possible world record. The Israel National Trail FKT, Boston Marathon this morning. Big Sur Marathon next week. He's doing it all, and we're excited to have him on the show. So without further ado, welcome everyone to Ginger Runner Live. The show begins now. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us tonight on Ginger Runner Live, episode number 255. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. Tonight on the show, we have probably one of the best, most seasoned, he's been on the show before. I don't know how to introduce him because he does everything. It's not like best ultra runner or best marathoner or that sort of thing. He literally does everything, and he could do it all in a weekend too.
He also does it very, very well.
Very well. Setting course records, FKTs, masters records, all over the place. Almost every single race that he enters, he podiums to some degree, multiple in a weekend. Like Mike Wardian is by far one of the most versatile, that's the word I was looking for earlier, versatile runners out there, just making a splash and inspiring us and thousands along the way. We're going to talk to him tonight about his 10 marathons in 10 days world record. That includes 7 marathons on 7 continents, and then an additional 3 marathons. Running the Israel National Trail, fastest known time. This morning, running the Boston Marathon. And then next week, running the Big Sur Marathon. We're going to talk to him all about that on tonight's show. But it's not just myself and Mike. We are also joined by Kim.
Hi, guys. Yes, my name is Kim, and as always, I am in the chat room. I've been chatting with you guys thus far. If you guys have questions for our wonderful guest, Mike, please pop them into the chat room. We'll be pulling live questions throughout the hour.
I have a feeling we're going to have a ton of live questions.
Already some Fortnite dance questions.
That was going to come up. I knew it was going to come up. Before we introduce our guest and show you exactly where he's coming to us live from, hint, it's a car. We have some individuals that we like to thank at the top of every episode. Our Patreon supporters. It is because of them that we're able to do this live show, reviews, films, all that weekly here at youtube.com/thegingerrunner. 3 individuals in particular at that top tier help us immensely, and we like to shout them out at the top of every Ginger Runner Live. Chris Lee in Hong Kong, doing a wonderful job of showcasing the Hong Kong trails through his organization Trailblazer. If you find yourself in the Hong Kong area, seek out Trailblazer, and they'll get you suited up with gear, get you out into the trails, and show you all the really cool stuff around the area. Brian Sands has been a longtime supporter, has a wonderful, inspiring story about his journey of weight loss, losing over 100 pounds, training for his first marathon, 50K, first 50 miler coming up hopefully soon. He's training for that now. Wonderful human and super inspiring. And finally, Rick Bjarnason, also an ultra runner. His company, cheekymonkeymedia.ca, they redid the Ginger Runner website, gingerrunner.com. Really, really proud of that. Rick and his whole team are so talented and incredibly helpful. And Rick is training for his serious ultra series this summer, Sinister 7, followed by Fat Dog 120. So big shout out to those 3 individuals. Now, without further ado, literally coming to us from the passenger seat of a car is our wonderful guest tonight, the incredible Mike Wardian.
Yay!
Hey.
First of all, you're not driving. We got to make that clear. You are not driving. You are safe. Oh, perfect timing. We lost a little bit of signal. There he is. Sorry, Mike. We lost you for a second, but you showed us that you are not driving.
No, I am not driving.
Okay, good.
I'm just riding now. So I did a little session, but my wife Jennifer is the one who's doing all the most of the driving, if not all the driving. Yeah, so she's been getting us where we need to go.
Well, we definitely appreciate the sacrifice. I know that this is prime time for you to be relaxing and resting and spending time with your family. So we appreciate you taking the hour to spend a little bit of it with us on the show, man. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's our pleasure. We're like big fans of what you guys are doing, so it's always cool to get a chance to reconnect.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think this is like one of the best times to reconnect with you too. You always have so much going on, but the last few months I feel like have been just like Mike Wardian kicking ass to the 10th degree. Let's go back a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's been insane, dude. It's been like a year already.
I can imagine sleep has been a luxury. Have you managed to keep up with sleep at all in this scenario?
No, I'm not a good sleeper. So that's something that has definitely been lacking, but it's one of like we all have stuff that we're working on, so it's definitely something that I'm trying to prioritize.
And it's good to point out that you also have a full-time job. You have a wonderful family. So it's not just running. Like, you're not a professional runner. Well, of course you are, because you're sponsored and you do such incredible things. But you also have a full-time life outside of the sport too, right?
Yeah. So time for a company called Potomac Maritime in Washington, D.C. We do humanitarian food aid cargoes. And then we have two boys, Pierce and Grant, and then we also have a little puppy named Rosie. Well, she's 5 now, so not as much of a puppy anymore.
Beautiful. I remember seeing lots of pictures and videos of the pup. So yeah, let's go a little bit back in history here. Of course, your last year has been incredible, but the last, I feel like 4 months or so have been really, really special. The 10 marathons in 10 days. What was the inspiration for that? Because you have done... Yeah, sure. You've done the 7 marathons on 7 continents before. This is you returned to that this year. What was the inspiration to go back for that and add those 3 marathons on top of that? Where did that all come from?
Yeah, well, I guess it seems like we may not have touched on it yet, but I started the year with the 100 miler.
Oh yeah,
which I know
of course.
You guys are very, very familiar with, and it's probably one of my favorite events now. So I just want to give a shout out to the guys that hurt, and like it's a really incredible course and community there. So like I was super fortunate to get to take part in that. In about I think it was a week later that I went and did the 7 marathons. So like it was a pretty quick turnaround.
Right.
So from hurt, I came home, and then I flew quickly to South Africa, and the impetus for doing the 7 marathons and 7 continents again, even though I had done it before, is that the route had changed. So we were able to go to different locations, and even a different location on Antarctica. So I was really smitten with Antarctica the first time, and anytime I get a chance to go to Antarctica, I'm going to try to say yes if it's okay with the family. And so Jennifer and the boys were nice enough to allow me the opportunity to go. And even if I only went to Antarctica, I would have been so happy. And I love Cape Town, so the chance to go back to Cape Town was really a draw. And then Australia is actually, I don't know, it seems like all these places are my favorite places, but Australia is really special. Like the people in Australia, I don't know if you guys had the chance to go there.
Not yet.
Australian person, you know that they're just amazing. And so the chance to like explore Western Australia, we had the marathon was in Perth, and it was actually at a marathon club, which was amazing. Like they have like a clubhouse and like a little route from the clubhouse, and they actually share it with like a boating place. And so they like had a big barbecue for us, and like at like 1 o'clock in the morning, like it was just awesome. So like I didn't know that was going to happen, but I was like, if I can go back to Australia, that would be great. And then the route was Dubai, Madrid, and I found out in Madrid that we ran on a Formula One track, and so I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. What I didn't realize is that Formula One tracks are super hilly, so there was like 1,800 feet of elevation gain on a road marathon, which was surprising. And then Santiago, Chile, and then we ended in Miami. And so for me, it was really a good opportunity, because the first time I did the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, I thought, wow, it'd be cool to try to do a 10-day world record. But with it finishing in the U.S., that became a real possibility, because I could either do it in Florida, or I could do it in D.C., which is what I ended up doing with my friend Chris Farley and Pacers Running Stores. So they were able to set up 3 additional marathons for me to go for the 10-day world record. The first time I had the Tarawara 100K, and so I actually flew home from Australia, picked up Jennifer and the boys. Like I flew home on a Tuesday. We left on Friday, I think, and flew back to New Zealand. So it was basically I flew back to fly back, but it makes it when you're traveling with kids to have two sets of hands rather than one.
When you set out for the 7 continents, were you attempting to set like an average record? Were you attempting to set any record from the start? Or was that sort of something that evolved and you knew that you were getting close and that sort of became the new objective?
This time or the first time?
This time.
Yeah, this time, I was hoping to improve on my time from the first time. So I ran an average of 2 hours, 45 minutes for 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents the first time.
That's crazy.
And I was like, wow, I didn't really sleep. And there's things I could have done better. I could have, just been more efficient with what I did. And so I was like, I for sure know I can improve on that. And of course, like, this time I ran an average of 2:55, and it's just, it was a combination of the courses were a little bit more challenging this time, I think. And then we got some pretty, in the U.S. than it was in Antarctica when we ran the marathon in Antarctica. So it was only about 32 degrees in Antarctica. So all the snow turned to slush. So it just made it really, really hard running.
Oh yeah.
So I was a lot slower. But I still thought, well, I'd have a chance at the 10-day world record. And so like, that's, the other impetus was like, I thought like, wow, it'd be really cool to try to go for that record. But it was more about just seeing if my body could withstand like 10 marathons in 10 days. And it ended up like, it worked out great. Like my last marathon was actually my fastest marathon. I ran 2 hours and 40 minutes in my last marathon. So my last 3 marathons were actually the fastest. I ran 2:50, 2:48, and I think I ran 2:44 actually for the last one. So yeah, so it was pretty cool just to know that your body can get stronger when you're doing something like that.
I think I love it because as someone who's not even remotely that fast, I look at that and go, well, that's cool that Mike could create his own sort of objective. Like you could take something like the 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days and add to it. If you're going out and doing a race, why not do that race and maybe add your own flair to it? So Mike's additional flair was 3 more marathons and to test that 10-day marathon period. Like I love that. I love the creativity with it. And I remember seeing all the pictures and videos that came from your 3 additional marathons. And it looked like you were having so much fun. there was no suffering. It looked like there was no suffering. I was like, how is he doing this 10 days later? Just elated. It was really neat to see.
There was plenty of suffering, dude. Like, there was a lot of suffering. It was cool because I've been super fortunate to have a really good community of people support me, and so I had a lot of people that came out and helped break the wind. But where we chose to do the marathons was kind of challenging. So it was great logistically because it was basically like a 5K loop, but it was super windy and just it's exposed, and so making sure you have people to help share the load with really made a big difference. And that's kind of like, I think the best part of this year is just the opportunity to be able to connect with the running community. It's like it happened in the 10-day world record for the 10 marathons and the 7 marathons in 7 days, but also like, and I don't know if you guys caught this, but between the 10 marathons in 10 days and the Israeli National Trail, I set a FKT on one of my local trails too. So it was like a 45-mile
Right.
FKT
It was a long
bike trail.
Bike trail, yeah. Was that a national park? Is that a long national park trail?
Yeah, I think it's the narrowest national park like in the country or something. It's basically, just like as wide as the bike trail, but it's about 45 miles long. But during that, like the whole like DC running community again came out and supported me and like ran with me, and people drove like 4 hours to come and run like 15 miles. It was just awesome. Like, so yeah, I think that was one of the coolest things that's happened so far this year. It was just the way it, like, bringing people together through these different events.
I think it's a testament to your draw too, as an athlete that's inspiring and bringing people into the sport. You're such a great ambassador to all that's good with the sport, not only from longevity and being able to run multiple races and FKTs and personal projects week after week after week. I think that's a testament to your ability. Again, we are live with Mike. He's driving with his family from the Boston Marathon to home. The signal from time to time does drop in and out. That's not Mike's fault. That's not our fault. That's the highway he's on. It's the highway's fault. Regardless, if you have questions for Mike, ask away. And I think Kim has actually a couple questions for you, Mike.
There's a comment and question from Nathaniel in the chat room. They say, Mike, you've competed and won the World Marathon Challenge more than once. What's it like to run a marathon each day on a new continent for 7 days? And what impact does it have on your body? There's a lot of questions regarding recovery in between and how do you pull this off?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest tricks of doing the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents is like, how do you keep lining up? And I think the answer is you just keep lining up and you don't worry about what you did the day before. And I think that's like a shift in mindset, like of just saying like, okay, that was yesterday. And it's similar to like a lot of, I'm a big NFL like fantasy football fan, and you always hear the Patriots are always like, okay, next or move on. And so like, I feel like it's the same with the 7 marathons in 7 days is you do it and then, you move on to the next one. But like physically what I tend to do is to try to keep moving and then get some food and hydrate. And I'm not a great sleeper. So like if you can sleep between them, that's a real key. And I think that goes a long way. But just to be ready to go the next day and to know you can do it. And I think if you can continue to keep lining up, you'll be surprised what your body will let you do.
I know that we had you on after the last World Challenge and after you had won, and we talked a lot about just being on that plane between the marathons and the things that you would have to do in the aisles and the recovery tools and stuff like that. Did you learn anything from that first year going into this that you incorporated into your recovery? Like, did you compression, roll, do any of that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did everybody. It was really cool. Like, I think one of the nice things this year is there was like probably the first time I did it, there was maybe 1 or 2 sets of those Normatec boots. And I think this year there was probably 10 sets. And so like that was really helpful. And then a lot of people had the Hypervise like gun things. which are really nice. And then I brought a lacrosse ball and like stretchy bands because I don't know if you guys have been following me, but I've been doing a lot of strength training, and so like I tried to keep up with like doing that kind of stuff while I was on the plane. And then if I finished early, then I had some time to kind of get those type of pliability and mobility work done.
That's awesome.
So I think that, yeah, for me,
helped.
that's been a big change, is like doing the strength training. And I think that was something also I wanted to test out, was just like, is this stuff really helping? And I can tell you like with 100% certainty that I know that it is, and that it's making me be able to do these type of things. Like, and it's I do it twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, with a guy named Jesse Fuller. But it's the kind of stuff where you're not like, wow, this is actually, I get super stoked now, but it's like kind of stuff where it's hard to make yourself do that kind of stuff on your own. And so having somebody that can hold you accountable and teach you how to do it is really, really impactful.
Oh, I can imagine. I want to talk a little bit about the Israeli National Trail FKT. This is a project that when you announced it, and I had obviously no idea, was this something that you had been looking at for a long time? Was this something that was presented to you, or was it a project that you came up with on your own?
No, man, I didn't know anything about Israel. Israel was just like a blank spot on the map for me, as far as like, I know my sister's visited before, and you hear about Israel in the news, but as far as like ever traveling there or like having any inkling that there were beautiful trails and like this really vibrant running community,
right,
I didn't know anything about it until I met a guy named Zoli Bahari, and he's from Israel, and I met him at a race called the Coastal Challenge in 2018.
Costa Rica.
And he yeah, in Costa Rica, the Coastal Challenge, and he was telling me about these beautiful trails in Israel, and I was just kind of like, what? I don't know about that. And he's like, no, for real, that we've got this like Appalachian Trail. It's 631 miles, and I think somebody can do it in 10 days. Would you be interested? And it was like, it fit in with everything that I kind of want to do in the future, with like running across the country and all the continents. And it's something where it's kind of bite-sized enough where you don't have to be gone for 40 or 50 days. You can kind of do it in a 2-week span. And so I thought, wow, this would be a great opportunity to see if I could run 60. You know, basically we were thinking try to run 100K every day for 10 days. And I was like, wow, that seems really interesting. And like, then he started showing me some pictures of the trail. And he said, hey, why don't, and I was a little worried about security, you know, just being a U.S. citizen, like, is this going to be something I need to worry about? And making sure that my wife and kids were also comfortable with it. And so we set up like a reconnaissance weekend where I went and ran a race called the Hyris Ultra Marathon. I didn't even know they had ultra marathons in Israel, to be honest. And they have a pretty cool ultra running scene there. And so I went in December and checked out the trails, and then also like I wanted to make sure that like the food would be okay, like, because I've been a lot of places where it's hard to be vegetarian, and if you're going to be trying to run 60 or 70 miles a day, like I need to be able to find stuff that I can eat for that long,
sure.
And that is not going to make me sick, like, because a lot of places I go and, you know, I end up sick. And so all those things kind of, we ticked all those boxes, and then I got a chance to see the trail, and I was just like, wow, this is just mind blowing. Like, I didn't even know they had like cliffs like that, and like super technical trails with like via ferratas, and like,
wow,
it was one of the most beautiful deserts I've ever been to. And then we like went by the Dead Sea, and then so I don't know if you know a lot about the trail, but the markings are basically orange, the blue for the sea, and then white for the snow. And I was like, are you kidding me? There's snow there? But they have like snow-capped mountains, and they have like a ski resort in Israel. It's insane. Like, I didn't even know. And there's so much diversity in such a small country.
I mean, it sounds fascinating. And just the reconnaissance trip alone, I think, would be the adventure of a lifetime for a lot of people. Just running an ultramarathon in a foreign country and getting to experience these new trails and this new community. 680 plus miles of a foreign trail that you don't get to scout the entirety of. Were there a lot of unknowns going into it that made you nervous? I've known you for years, and I know you've done a lot of races that are all levels of difficulty. What was it like going into this 680 plus miles of unknown?
It was, I mean, there was, I only scouted like probably 15 miles of the route out of 131. So yeah, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of just route finding that I was worried about, because the way they paint the trails are just kind of on rocks that sometimes get washed away, or it turned out like they got 130% of their annual rainfall already. And so like everything in the desert was completely like in bloom, which was amazing. But it was also like not supposed to be there for the most part. So like a lot of the markings were covered with vegetation and or washed away, and so it just made it super challenging. But yeah, I was worried about that. I was worried about what it's going to get like as you get to the ocean, where you're going to have like winds coming off the sea, and then also you're going to be running on the beaches. I was worried about kind of the metro areas, like are you going to be running like right along the highway? Because I saw some of that. But yeah, and then you're also going through a lot of different cultures. So Israel's really diverse. They have Christians, Arabs, Muslims, Orthodox Jews. They have things called kibbutzes, which are like a collective, kind of like a communist socialist towns, or like a commune. And so like am I going to have any issues with that? And then of course you have like the normal issues with like wildlife, like snakes, and most of the time in the wildlife that's the most challenging though is just like stray dogs and stuff like that. But that like none of that stuff was too much of a problem, but it was stuff that I was worried about. And also the weather, because it's pretty hot there, so it was in this between 70s and like 90, but at night it gets super cold. So like how are you dealing with that? And then also the other thing was like permitting. You're only allowed to travel through the parks during the daytime, and so like am I going to be able to knock out enough miles before it gets dark? And so that's all those kind of things were kind of playing on my mind, but it turned out to be great. Like Zoli did a great job, like coordinating everything. He kind of handled the logistics. So it was a guy named Zoli, and then Ian Corliss, who I don't know if you guys have had him on or not.
Not yet. We've talked about it. He and I have talked about it on social.
Yeah, so he's pretty amazing photographer. And then there was another guy named Eris, and those three guys were kind of with me the whole time. And then it kind of rotated in some other friends that I had met there. And then what was the coolest part to me was the Israeli running community kind of embraced this challenge and were inspired by it. And so like it turned into like this crazy like Forrest Gump thing where people would like come out and run with me. And it, at one point there was, probably 20 people running, and then other points there's nobody. And, but that I think was really cool and something that I wasn't expecting, but I was hoping that would happen.
This is like completely fascinating, because I mean, so many questions are coming to mind just as like logistics, and you had a limited amount of time while you were there, right? And trying to formulate all this, but having the crew on the ground that was helping. We'll get to some of that in a second, but of course we are asking live questions. If you're watching live, jump into the chat room. Kim, what do we got?
Yeah, another great question from Nathaniel. Nathaniel says, you set the Israel National Trail FKT. Can you describe the inspiration beyond taking on this route? You've already talked about some of the challenges you faced in the prep. Nathaniel also wants to know what your biggest takeaway from this effort was.
Yeah, I think, well, thank you very much for asking the question, being part of the conversation. And I think the inspiration was Zoli. He basically said like, hey, you should do this. And I was like, sounds cool. And so that's what why I thought it, like, I should give it a go. And I also just wanted to see if I could do it. And like, it would be basically double anything I'd ever done before. And so like, for me, that was, a big challenge and something that I wanted to know if I was capable of. Because you see people like, Pete Kospelich or those guys who do like 70 miles a day, and you're like, how is that even possible? But now I know, like, one of the days I did like 75 miles, or like Scott Jurek or like Carl Meltzer or those guys doing the Appalachian Trail. And like, that's something that, I've always wanted to do too. And so, just to know that you can kind of handle that volume and how that feels and like what it looks like in reality was something that was kind of appealing to me. And what was the other part of the question?
Your biggest takeaway from the experience.
Oh yeah. And the biggest takeaway was, that it's like anything that you set your mind to is possible. Which I think we all kind of want to explore that and see if that's actually true. And then I was the person that I thought I was. And sometimes like when you do these things and you're like really in the heart of it, and I don't know if you guys ever get to that point, but it's like gets hard and you're like, wow, the person, like, you're like, oh, I'm going to do all these things. And then it gets really hard and you're like, well, maybe I don't want to do that. And so like, I think it was cool to like see myself like completely stripped down and destroyed and still have the determination and perseverance to push forward. But the only reason I could do that was because of the people that were around me and helping me to do that. And sometimes like you have to get to that point to allow people to help you achieve what you want to do. And so like I was hoping that I would learn that about myself, and it happened. And what was really neat was like the ability to keep running at a hard level when you don't think you can. Like at like mile 8, I've already been running for 18 hours, and then you're all of a sudden being able to drop like 5 or 6 minute miles. That just doesn't make any sense. But it happened, and it was because of the people that were helping me out there and pushing me forward. So like, yeah, I'm excited to see what that means going forward.
I mean, I think that also kind of goes back to what you were just saying about community and how this year you've really sort of discovered that aspect of things. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're describing, is that community that you became a part of during that experience from locals and people who were traveling with you and that sort of thing. It seems like it became a team effort. And I mean, that's a bigger conversation too. You start looking at ultras in Europe and 100 milers in Europe where they don't necessarily allow pacers, but the US ultras do sometimes allow pacers, and that does kind of become part of that community and sharing of the experience. You also mentioned at just a couple of seconds ago hitting those lows and having to like you feel like you're done, and then having this community sort of rally with you. What were some of those lows that you were encountering on the FKT, and what do you think brought them about, and how did you manage to channel through them?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the biggest lows, I mean, the one that comes to mind right away is on day 8. I was just having a hard day, and we came to a big washout. Basically, it was like completely covered with water, and there was no way around it. And the 2 guys I was with were like, "What do we do? Should we like go back?" And I was like, "No." And I just like started walking right through the water. And I was like, "Whatever, it's just going to be up to my knees." And it was just kind of like, I don't know if you ever heard that like story with the guy who gets to the knot, and then they're like, "What do we do, Alexander?" I think, or something. And he just pulls out his sword and just chops it in half. And I was just like, that's what I'm doing. And so like, I just wade into this, like what I thought was a puddle. And then all of a sudden it's like at my knees, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then all of a sudden it's at my crotch, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be not great. And then all of a sudden it's like at my chest, and I'm like pulling up my GPS because I'm like, oh, it's going to get waterlogged. And so like, but my temperature, like I was having trouble regulating my body at that point. And so as soon as we get out of it, we get to this beach called Pulag Beach where they fly kites, which is really beautiful, but when you're like wicked cold all of a sudden because you just waded through a thing. Like it just dropped my temperature and I just couldn't get warm. And I'm like sitting in this chair with like 250 kilometers still to go. And I just like, I don't know if I can go on anymore. And I'm like starting to hallucinate a little bit. And I see like this school bus with like lights that look like hearts. And I'm like, that's not real. And then I'm like, I need to eat. And so this was, I think, one of the other cool things about the FKT is it like everything that I've done in my career like built to this moment. And I've been in a chair like that at mile 80 of like the San Diego 100 miler, not knowing how I was going to go forward for the last 20 miles. And I was just like, I'm just going to sit here until I feel better. And like, nothing sounded good. And like, eventually I just started putting in calories. Like I was like, I don't drink coffee, but tonight I do. And so I drank some coffee and that made me feel better. And so like, I basically did the same thing in Israel. I was like, nothing sounds good, but I know I need to eat. And so I did. And then I put on like 3 jackets and gloves and a hat. And like, people are like in board shorts, like completely like playing volleyball. And like, they see this dude, he's like dressed like he's going up Mount Everest. And then I just stood up and I started walking. And within like 20 minutes, I'm running and then I'm running fast. And it's just like, that shouldn't even be possible. But that's something I learned in another experience that I had is like, if you can get yourself just moving, like all of a sudden good things can happen. And that applies not just in ultras, but in real life. Like when things look bleak and when you're not sure you can go forward, if you can continue to just put one foot in front of the other, you never know where you're going to be in 20 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. I mean, I was willing to walk the next 17 hours if I had to. But fortunately, it turned out I didn't have to. But I've done that in Diagonal to Foo, like 5 years before that, where I walked for 17 hours and then all of a sudden I felt better. And then I ended up like 40th overall. But I was like, you know, no one expected that I was going to be able to finish. And so like just continuing to move forward, I think applies to many things.
One comment in the chat room here is, wow, that story was intense. And I'm like sitting here nodding, going, oh my God, wait, Mike, you just waded through like a surprise river that you don't know like if it exists, and then a school bus with heart lights, like a lot just happened. And I can only imagine, like that's just a fraction of probably some of the memories.
There were other people there. The river. Oh man, it was crazy. It was just, it was, and then of course after that happens, we get on a beach and it's all like the loosest gravel, like seashells you've ever seen in your life with a ridiculous like 30 knot headwind or something unbelievable. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And it was just a absolute just beat down day. But we got through it, and you know that's kind of how it works. And that's what you got to keep doing. You just got to keep moving forward and put your head down and you know, I use every emotion, man. I went from like happy to like angry to like just being like, come on, man, bring it. Give me more of the headwind, you know, like I want more of that. Like, and so like just using whatever you can to fire yourself up and then you get it done.
God, I had that this weekend. Holy crap. Like just my regular runs seem so minuscule compared to what Mike has been going through, but just saying that, like use those emotions because they pop up in the weirdest possible ways. Live questions. We got tons of them. Kim, what do we got for Mike?
Yeah, there's been several questions about nutrition. Can you maybe talk briefly about like if you're doing anything special outside of your running events and then your nutrition within these multiple day race efforts?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a vegetarian. So I've been a vegetarian since the early 90s. And so I've gone all the way to vegan, and then now I eat eggs and honey. So those are the only 2 animal products. And I'm pretty fortunate. My wife Jennifer is a really incredible cook, and so she does a lot of the cooking in the household, which is nice. So we work with a couple different companies. One is TB12. They do a thing with Purple Carrot where they send 3 meals a week, which are really nice. They're all plant-based meals, but high protein. We do another thing with Sweet Green, which I don't know if you guys have those out your way, but it's like a salad company. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure thing, which is really cool.
We don't. I've had it with John Kelly on the East Coast before, and it's life-changing. I'm so jealous they don't have them here.
Yeah, I mean, there's some in like California and like LA is actually where they've moved their headquarters. So they're in LA, San Fran, but I think that they're kind of expanding. So it's a pretty incredible. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And then, but I do also like a lot of almond and nut butters. So I work with a company called Big Spoon Roasters, which I eat a lot of almond butter, honey, and banana sandwiches, which is just like a staple for me. And so, and then tons of fruit and veggies, but most like bananas, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries are kind of like my favorite go-tos, and mangoes, and then tons of cereal, like lots and lots of cereal with almond milk.
You guys would get along just fine.
I knew that. I think I knew that about Mike, and I was like, yes, it's the cereal thing. Yes. yes. Yeah. I don't know as much as Seinfeld, but a lot of cereal. Yeah. That's kind of like my dessert. And then during races, it depends kind of on the distance. So like up to 50 miles or so, it's usually liquid calories and or I work with goo. And so I use a lot of goos, chomps or stroopwafels. And then after 50 miles, what I've actually been doing too is a coconut water, which I thought was a complete farce, but I actually really like it. So coconut water, avocado, like slice it, and then either like flour tortillas or pita bread with hummus, and I usually put the avocado in it with salt, or just like salt and avocado, and sometimes egg whites and or omelets. And then during the FKT in Israel, like for the first couple days, I just ate like I would up to like 100 miles or so with like, avocado slices and like, the gels and stuff like that. But after like day 3, I think it was like, I started just needing like way more calories. And so I'd have like a sandwich like every like 10 kilometers. And then it became by like day 5 or 6, it was like, I need a sandwich every 10 kilometers with egg on it and Pringles. And then, so it was like, it reminded me of those like old David Horton things where you see like them delivering dry ice to him with like tubs of like ice cream, but it was basically like, I just need so many calories, and any, like I would just put in something like really small and it would just burn as soon as it hit my stomach. It was just like, oh, you put a carrot in? Like that didn't do anything. Like, oh, you ate a pickle? Yeah, right, dude. You better try like a pickle slathered in potato chips and like, yeah, like butter, because like that's not going to do anything. We had Jurek on last week and kind of talking to him about his FKT with the AT and stuff like that. And there just seems to come a point when your body is so, it's an engine, right? It's a furnace, and you can't put enough fuel in it to like burn, because your body is just constantly burning calories. So I can only imagine what that was like for you in Israel.
And dude, well, what else is weird, and I don't know if I actually saw him this weekend and I wanted to talk to him about this, but I'd also like, anytime I stopped, I would just sweat through everything. And I still am like that. Like, oh my God, dude, like today during the marathon, I did 2 races since Israel. I did a 10-miler last weekend called the Cherry Blossom 10-miler. And then I've done 3 races. And then on Saturday I did the 5K. And then today I did the marathon. And I'm the only guy that took water at every single aid station. Like I was the dude like hammering like water at mile 1 like dumping it all over me because I'm so hot. I just can't regulate my temperature, and I sweat through all my clothes. Like it's just I still can't turn it off.
That's
So
interesting.
I was like, I want to talk to Scott and say like, hey dude, how long does it take for this to go away?
After my 100 and after long efforts, this is not, I'm going to try to relate to Mike, and it's not going to work very well. But I know that my body takes weeks to regulate its temperature after really, 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 really big efforts. Your big efforts are like my like adorable efforts. So, or sorry, my big efforts are your adorable efforts. So I'm wondering if that's what it is. I wonder if you're like with the FKT, multiple days, multiple 100-kilometer runs every day. So I'm wondering, maybe your body just hasn't regulated its temperature system, like its endocrine system or something. Endocrine. Maybe.
Yeah.
I saw the picture of you running today, and it's you taking a water bottle and just spraying your face. And I was like, I thought it was raining. Like, I thought it was really cold. But that makes sense. So you're actually cooling off. You're trying to cool off at the Boston today.
Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, I feel very responsible for like using way more water than they planned on for one person. So like, thank you, Dave McGilvery and everyone at Boston for accounting for like a water hog like me today, because I dumped so much water on my person.
I'm sure they had enough. I'm sure they didn't run out.
Yeah, I think Polar Spring did a good job for them.
But I think this is a perfect time to sort of segue into the Boston Marathon, because for those who are maybe just tuning in or tuning in a little bit late, Mike Wardian is literally driving from the Boston Marathon home. It's been just a crazy couple of months for him with some of these big epic runs, and he's not done. So he just ran Boston today. He's running Big Sur next week. But for you, Mike, how important is Boston? It's not your first time running it. You've gone there many, many years. Is it a really special race for you? Is there something about it that brings you back year after year? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, besides it being like the oldest marathon and like one of the most prestigious and one of the biggest, and it being on Patriots Day, and which is a holiday only in Massachusetts. And the whole city comes out and like knows about it. It's for me, it's the race that got me into running. So I wouldn't be here talking to you guys had it not been for the Boston Marathon. And it's the race that solidified that I want to do this, and I want to see how far I can go with my running and where it'll take me. And so I've done the Boston Marathon. I think this was my 18th time doing it. So it was the first marathon I ever wanted to do. I didn't come into running like the traditional way. I came in like a lot of your listeners, maybe like just setting the bar really high. It was like, I want to run the Boston Marathon, and I didn't even know you had to qualify when I made that decision. I didn't know it was like the Boston Marathon. Like I just thought, oh, it's a marathon in Boston, and my friend Vince Boyce and mom Vicky Boyce and had just finished it. It was actually around this time. It was like Easter weekend. They had me over to their house, and it was the first time I like met a marathon runner. It didn't look like Bill Rogers. Like it was like, wow, she's just a regular lady. Like I could probably do this, and that was the motivation for me to do it. And then this was like way old school. You had to like send a self-addressed stamped envelope to the BAA, and they would send you back the pamphlet. And I applied, and then I noticed that you had to have a qualifying time. So I ran a qualifying time, and then decided to try to break 3 hours because I thought that's what real marathon runners do. And I did, and then I got hooked. Like I went to Boston, and like the community there. I don't know if you guys have run it before, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about. But there's just like an energy in the city, and there's a buzz, and you feel special, and everybody feels that way. Like from the very first person to the very last person, and they just do this incredible job. And yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where to me it means a lot. And if I ever have the chance to run it, and I'm not already committed to do something else. I want to spend, Patriots Day in Boston, running through the streets and celebrating the sport that we love together with everyone else.
I have only been there. I haven't run it. I'm not fast enough to qualify, but being there during that marathon weekend, it like that speaks volumes to the city as well. Like if anyone gets a chance to even just be in Boston during that weekend, it's amazing. Just to see the whole city come together for an event like that. There's very few cities I feel like I've ever been to with marathons or events like that where the whole city is ready for it and excited about it. It's really
knows
rare
about it.
and knows about
Yeah.
it. Even the people who are like,
and-
the traffic is going to be terrible. They're still like,
Yeah.
but I'm going to go watch,
Yes. Yeah. Even the Uber drivers that were like pissed that they're like, oh crap, they closed down like one of the biggest streets in the city for like 3 days and just put the finish line there and let people walk down the middle of the street. Like, who does that? Like Boston, because they're cool. Like, yeah.
I do love that. Again, we have a couple live questions that we'll get to Mike here. I just want to kind of talk a little bit about what set this year apart for you. So what made this year's Boston different than the previous Bostons? Maybe something that happened out on the course or how you felt or coming off of the FKT. What separated it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I still feel like trash. So yeah, it was weird. So you were saying like, what was one of the takeaways like from the FKT was like, I felt like when I finished that, I could have done that for another 40 days. But as soon as I stopped, my body was like, okay, now you owe me. And so for the last 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, it's been, it's been a struggle, to go to work and get home and put in a couple training sessions. But, I've been doing my strength training and all that kind of stuff. But it's, my body's, craving some recovery and I'm trying to be cautious and conscientious of that, but also like, I like to push myself. And so, but man, I started today and I had tired legs and felt flat and, I bonked probably within the first 2 miles. I was like, this is going to be a rough day, man.
Oh.
And so, but again, I mean, there's 33,000 people that are out there, challenging themselves, and it's an opportunity for me to see what I'm capable of. And so I just kept moving forward and kept, latching on to people, and people kept latching on to me. I can't believe how many people came up and were like, dude, I can't believe what you just did in Israel, or man, that 7 marathon thing was rad, and man, it's awesome that we're getting to run together, and like, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel terrible, but let's see what we can do. And, so I just kept grinding, and I ran one of my fastest times probably in the last 2 years. And, but it was not easy. It was a suffer fest the whole day, but it makes me excited for like when my legs do come back, what's possible. And, I'd like to try to chase the standard for the Olympic trials again this year. And so, this gives me some hope that, I'm able to, get a little bit of leg speed going and see what's possible.
2:33:23 is roughly what you said that you finished, but 2:33:23-ish is a monster time. It is so fast. And to think that, when we've had you on the show in the past, it's like, man, Mike he's just getting started. He's been at this for a while, but he's still like, his trajectory is through the roof. And that's why I'm so excited about what you're doing right now, dude, is because you're not only pushing your own limits and figuring out what's possible or not, but you're essentially doing the same thing for all of us. You're kind of showing that setting those bars high and pushing those limits beyond what you're capable of, that is setting the bar for all of us. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I'm so happy to know you, and I'm so happy that you had such a great race today, despite bonking at mile 2, which I have felt before, and it sucks.
That was you at New York.
That was me in New York. But before we let you go, Mike, a couple questions from the live chat room. We'll get to those two. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, let's knock them out. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about this topic, and this one comes from Joseph. Joseph asked, Mike, how do you balance work, family, and training and manage to achieve such consistency?
It's a great question to sort of wrap it all up. How do you manage that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think there's a one thing that I like to try to do is to try to like have as minimal an impact on the family as possible. And so for me, I call it like invisible training, and it's basically like if you're already would be doing something. So I do a lot of my training is basically running to work and running home, which is like if I was commuting, it would be spent in the car. So if I can use that time wisely, then that's great. And then if I can run at lunch or do another type of activity at lunch, that's great. So to try to really not impact the family. And it's nice now our kids are a little bit older, but especially when the kids are younger, like we have our guys, Pierce is 12 and Grant's 10, but when they were smaller, we bought a treadmill just so that I could be close to the family. And you know, it's not fair to just be like, oh, I'm going to go for an 8-hour run. You know, like that just doesn't work with our lifestyle. And so, and then also to ask for help, you know, to try to engage your partner and say like, hey, you know, this is really important to me. I want to do these things, and you'd be surprised like how accommodating people can be, especially if they know, you know, that you have these big goals and want to, you know, kind of go for them. And so for me, it's basically trying to use your time efficiently. Like I am like weird. I like, you know, my calves while I brush my teeth, and like calls at work, I get up and like, you know, stand on my lacrosse ball or like put a little band around my ankles or like do push-ups, you know, every time I go to the bathroom or something. And so like, I think there's ways we can all be more efficient with our time. It's just like, how do you make it fit and like not be so weird that your coworkers are like, whoa, that guy's crazy. You can't be around him.
I mean, you're kind of the role model. You know, you're the role model for a person who is able to juggle it all, and it is a sight to behold. And we really appreciate what you're doing because you're inspiring runners, you're inspiring fathers, you're inspiring family people, and mothers and fathers, and it's a really amazing thing. And we can't wait to see what's next. I know that question always comes up on the podcast, and I'm not going to ask it tonight because I feel like Big Sur is next. It's coming up in a couple of days. But
Big Sur is next, and then I've got a really cool special project that's coming up too. So stand by. If your followers are interested in seeing what I'm doing next, like we're going to be doing a pretty cool thing coming up. So
hell yeah,
it'll be happening.
It'll be
happening pretty soon.
So for those who are maybe watching live and they want to ask residual questions or they want to follow along, Mike, with that currently secret project, where can they find you? Where can they follow along?
Yeah, man, I'm on pretty much all the social media platforms, and I'm really active on them. And I think it's a really important way to connect with people. So I'm at Mike Wardian. So it's MikeWard like dog. IAN like Nancy, and then on Facebook I just have an athlete page because my regular page is full, so the athlete page is just facebook.michaelwardian. So you can find me there, and worst case, you know, maybe just if you Google my name, stuff will come up. And then I also have a website that probably needs updated, but it's www.mikewardian.com.
Do it. Live viewers, people who are listening to the podcast or watching the archive version, go show Mike some love. He's doing things that no other human on earth is doing. Back-to-back long runs, FKTs, adventure runs, 10 marathons, 10 days, 7 continents. The Hurt 100, I can't believe I forgot about the Hurt 100 because that was so early in the year, but that is like one of the most difficult hundreds out there. And people are asking about Barkley and all that stuff. If you have those questions, go follow Mike, ask him. He's very, very good about getting back to people. But a huge thank you to our guest, Mike Wardian, for joining us on episode 255. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome to talk to you. I hope it turned out okay for everyone.
Oh,
it's great.
Yeah, there's only a couple of hiccups during the show, and you could barely miss it. So we got everything, which is fantastic.
Okay, cool.
Again, a big thank you to all of our live viewers tonight for episode number 255. Before we wrap up the main show here, we do have a little segment that we like to call the crew member of the week, where we get to shout out a member of the GR crew who's done something amazing or has hit a wall and jumped over it, or we just like to highlight our viewers each and every week. This week, we're going to highlight some members of our community who were at the Lake Sonoma 50 miler this last weekend, which went apparently bonkers crazy. Some of the finishes were amazing. Anne May Flynn with a 15-second win over EO, which is just incredible.
So crazy.
Jared Hazen with his incredible win. We have community members who were also there running. A big shout out to our GR crew members of the week. Alexander Weigel, I think I'm pronouncing that last name right, but congratulations on your Lake Sonoma 50-mile finish. And a shout out to Liz McCutcheon as well. She's been a longtime viewer, longtime supporter. She had a bit of a rough go at Lake Sonoma, but she's in the middle of this really cool self-made challenge, very similar to what Mike was talking about today. She ran the Chuckanut 50K. She was doing Lake Sonoma 50. She's doing the Mendocino 50K, and she's running Tiger Claw as well. So she's got this compact, very difficult schedule, and we're going to have her on the show next week actually to talk all about it. So big shout out to our crew members of the week, Alexander and Liz, who are just for rocking it out there and pushing themselves and trying to get it done.
And just really quickly, since we were talking a little bit about Boston, I want to give a shout out to Maria, Reginald, and Crispin, who all killed it out there today as well.
And additional Ladia as well, a former guest of the show. She did incredible with her OTQ out there. We've had her on the show in the past. So that is it for tonight's show. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to Ginger Runner Live episode number 255. Remember, go follow Mike Wardian on all of the social media channels. If you have residual questions, you can ask him there. We're going to let him go right after this show so he can go continue his commute home and sleep and eat. But we are going to be doing a post show at patreon.com/thegingerrunner. So for as little as $1 a month, you get to join us for all of our after shows after these main shows. Kim and I will be doing that here in just a couple of seconds. So again, thank you to our guest, Mike Wardian. That is it, everybody. We hope you get out there, train hard, race harder, party the hardest. I know I am. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Ginger Run.